In this video, I'll be covering the wiring connections of the RF007 flybarless controller. And this will just be an example with the hardware that I have here, which is the Steam AK420 Pro helicopter with a HobbyWing Platinum 80 amp V5 ESC. Your wiring may be different depending on your helicopter model and speed controller model, so always be sure to refer to the manual of your hardware for the correct wiring information. Starting from the top, we've got our 4 servos. Servo 1, 2, and 3 are the cyclic servos. The tail servo is obviously going to be your tail servo. ESC is your ESC throttle signal. RPM is the RPM signal from the ESC. Usually this is a separate yellow wire coming off of the ESC. And TLM is the ESC telemetry. I'm not going to be covering aux, S-bus, or the UART ports. Those are additional connections that you might use for GPS or buffer packs or other peripherals like LED strips that you would be connecting to the RF007. But I'm not going to cover those in this video. Starting with the servos, in my case, this helicopter has a CCPM 120 layout. So my number 1 servo is this rearward servo controlling the elevator pitch that's locked into the anti-rotation bracket. Looking from the front of the helicopter, the left cyclic servo is the number 2 servo, and the right cyclic servo is the number 3 servo. If your servo layout is different than this CCPM 120 layout, please refer to the Rotorflight documentation for the servo numbering. For my ESC, again, I'm using the HobbyWing 80 amp V5. I have the ESC telemetry coming from the P pin of the programming port. It's kind of hard to see. That's the blue wire. There's my yellow RPM wire and the ESC throttle signal, which is the white, red, and black wire. So the ESC throttle, RPM, and the telemetry, which is the blue wire, come over into the RF007, ESC, RPM, and TLM port. Now your ESC may not support the telemetry, or it may not have RPM. So again, your wiring may be different, and just refer to your ESC manual for the connection information. On the rotorflight.org website, under Tutorial, Configurator, Servos, you can see the servo numbering, as well as see the diagrams for the layout of the servos. In my case, I was using CCPM 120 with the number 1 servo toward the rear of the aircraft. On the FrSky website, you can also find the Vantac RF007 manual with the detailed pinout of the flybarless unit. For my helicopter, I was using the HobbyWing Platinum 80 amp V5. You can see here in the manual, it has the pinout for the programming port, which is actually reversed because my P pin was toward the outside of the ESC. I've also created a couple of diagrams showing the general wiring connections from the ESC to the RF007. In the case of the XDFly, for example, the programming port is labeled as TX, and in the manual for the 85 amp XDFly ESC, it tells you specifically to use TX pin for Rotorflight 2. And here's how the wiring connections would look like for that ESC. Once you have the ESC wired up, you can go into Rotorflight Configurator and set up the ESC telemetry and other motor settings for your helicopter. I'll cover all of that in the next video showing the programming of the Rotorflight with the RF007.